Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Colloquium on Religion and Violence here in Spain. I am hanging out with Christa. Hi, Christa.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming and talking with us about your paper today.
Not at all. Thanks for asking.
You delivered a paper that was, what was the title again?
Demystifying Tragic Violence, Myth and Remedy in Calderón de la Barca's Auto Sacramental. It's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful.
It's a long title.
Demystifying
Tragic Violence.
Tragic Violence. Mm-hmm. So let's take that on. How did Calderón demystify tragic violence?
Well, with the help of René Girard, actually.
Oh, okay. How did René Girard help Calderón?
Well, these are autos sacramentales. They're sacramental plays from the 17th century in Baroque Spain, written by Calderón, especially the ones that I study. And what happens is that in these plays, there is a character called Desire. Oh. So Deseo is the name of the character. And when I saw that, I thought, I wonder if he acts mimetically. Ah. And sure enough, you read about how he acts. He is part of humanity. So he is allegorically personified as well as humanity in this play. And he appropriates his desires from the malevolent character, the model, the mediator of power and honor and ambition. And as he appropriates these desires, he becomes unruly, embroiled like in a madness, and ultimately causes humanity's downfall. He turns on humanity and points a pistol at him and shoots him, thus causing humanity's fall. It's an allegory of retelling salvation history. And Deseo becomes entirely distraught after that. He actually converts from a tyrannical desire, which is what Girard describes. He describes this whole process of mimetic desire snowballing and becoming violent and causing rivalry, and then ultimately causing violence where he shoots humanity. And so when he converts, he becomes compassionate. But that's not enough to save humanity. So the Christ figure comes in and saves mankind.
Do you know what is it that causes his conversion?
Just hearing humanity's sadness and his unhappy tragedy, which he starts talking about his unhappy tragedy. And the devil, his character, comes in and says, I'm doing this all to expel my own rage because of his rivalry with God, his original rivalry. So he turns his desire to appropriate, to steal humanity, and to appropriate and steal his desire, influence that desire, and so that's how when he sees Deseo sees humanity suffering in his tragedy, that's how he starts to convert. That's how he starts to turn away from being self-centered, from being selfish, to being devoted to the other.
He somehow is able to hear the voice of his victim.
He is compartmentalized. Humanity's compartmentalized, so it's showing like how Deseo operates and how it influences humanity, right? But desire can be converted. Like desire can move from imitating a malevolent model, which was the devil, to modeling a more compassionate divine model, which ultimately is Christ himself, who comes in and saves mankind. But it's the undoing of tragedy overall. That's the demystifying of tragic violence, because the devil actually exposes the lie on stage. He tells the audience that he is the cause, the root cause. And Girard discusses this, that Satan is the same thing as Dionysus, the mob, death itself.
Girard picks up on, in the book I See Satan Fall Like Lightning,
right,
I think,
exactly.
Picks up on the phrase where Jesus says, talks about Satan casting out Satan.
Right.
And this is what Satan does in Calderón's book.
He does. That's precisely right. And Calderón he writes the devil to do this as, so he's a tragic figure, right? He's the wielder of tragedy, the myth maker. So the devil operates completely as the myth maker, that the violence that he is using will expel his own rage, right? But that's not, that is the cause of the violence.
Satan is a tragic figure. Does Calderon want us to have some kind of sympathy or empathy for Satan?
I don't believe so.
No.
No, I don't believe so at
Okay.
all. No, but perhaps we could just say that he is the wielder of the tragedy instead, right?
Okay.
So he is so like Dionysus is the cause of the tragedy, right? The devil is the root cause of the violence, of the rivalry, of the tragedy. He's the one who sets it into motion, like Dionysus. But in the tragedies that Gerard talks about, that's never made explicit, right? That's concealed. But in these plays, it's exposed, it's demystified, it's made patent before the audience that they could see that. So it's very exciting that it's anti-tragedy. It's the story of Christ, but it's still anti-tragedy because the devil shows himself for what he is, the wielder of that lie.
Fantastic.
It's very cool. But one thing also is that, that tragedy was performed on the feast of Dionysus, the Bacchanal feast. And so Gerard talks about how this tragedy was born of a real sacrifice, a real violence that occurred at that time, and thus was born tragedy. These sacramental plays were performed on Corpus Christi, which is the exaltation of the Eucharist, the body and blood of Christ, also hearkening back to a real sacrifice and a Eucharistic miracle. That feast was instituted for a Eucharistic miracle that occurred, in the medieval era.
Wow.
Yeah.
Christa, thanks so much for talking with us about your paper. It's fascinating.
Thank you for asking. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you, everybody, for watching. If you want to find out more about the Colloquium on Violence and Religion, you can look it up at religionandviolence.org. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.